The bacon sizzled on the stove, but I'd already forgotten it. The smell drifted lazily through the kitchen, mixing with the soft hum of the refrigerator and the faint patter of water upstairs. Julie's shower still running. The morning had started like any other. Early light through the frosted window. Coffee steeping too long in the pot. Cold floors beneath my feet. I'd gotten up before her, as usual. Habit. At 57, most of my routines had hardened into stone. What wasn't routine, what didn't fit, was the phone she'd left on the counter. Julie never left her phone out of reach. Not when she went to the bathroom, not when she walked to the mailbox. Not when I was home. That morning, though, maybe she forgot. Maybe she got careless. Or maybe she thought I'd stopped looking years ago. She didn't know I still noticed things. I'd only meant to silence an alert. Just a reflex. But what stared back at me from the screen was something else entirely. I can't stop thinking about Friday. I miss your smile. No name. Just a number. But I knew who it was. I'd heard his name enough. Gary. Our shift partner. Rode in the same carpool. Worked late. Always laughed too loud at her stories when I'd come by the hospital to drop off her lunch. I'd noticed. You don't work around electricity for 35 years without learning to sense when something's off. A buzz in the drywall. A hum behind the words. Still, I hadn't wanted to believe it. But there it was. Not a misfire. Not a joke. Not a misunderstanding. I scrolled. Next time, don't wear that perfume. I'll lose my mind. Just seeing you made my whole night. Tell your husband you're picking up another shift. I'll bring wine. And below it, her replies. You're bad. I needed that. Don't tempt me. The kind of intimacy that doesn't require touch. The kind that cuts deeper. I stared at the screen as if it might revise itself. As if the words might vanish if I blinked long enough. But they didn't. They just sat there, glowing cold and smug. I sat down at the kitchen table and took a long breath. My chest felt full but hollow, like a wall sagging under rot you didn't notice until your foot went through the floor. I'd been here before, not with Julie but with people. With moments like this. Moments where you suddenly see the truth not as a slow discovery, but like a flashlight snapping on in a dark attic. Dust everywhere. History exposed. The kind of moment where nothing ever returns to what it was. I didn't yell. I didn't even feel angry yet. I just felt shifted, like I was no longer in the house I thought I was in. The water was still running upstairs, so I answered the message, pretending to be her, my wife. Come over. My husband's out. Sent. I set the phone back down exactly where she left it. No theatrics. No spite. Just a trap laid gently, like a wire across the doorway. And then I waited. The bacon burned. I didn't flip it. I watched the grease bubble and spit until the smell turned from breakfast to something bitter. I heard the shower turn off. Water pipes clanged faintly through the walls. Then silence. A few minutes later, the soft thud of her footsteps on the stairs. I didn't look up. Julie walked into the kitchen in her robe, towel slung around her neck. Her hair was still damp, skin flushed from the heat. She looked soft, familiar, normal. She moved like she had every morning for the past 20 years. Casually, unthinking, with that sleepy comfort of a woman who believes the ground under her feet is stable. I saw her glance at the stove. You burned the bacon, she said with a little laugh. I didn't answer. She smiled, opening the fridge. You want me to make some eggs? The knock came before I could reply. 3 short knocks. Light, confident. Julie froze. Something changed in her spine. The way she held herself. The little flicker of something behind her eyes. Not recognition. Not yet, but something primal. Something like fear. I watched her. Who's that? She asked, too quickly. I don't know, I said. My voice didn't rise. I kept my tone even, like we were discussing the weather. She started toward the front door. Barefoot. Still damp. She didn't look at me again until she was halfway down the hall. And that's when it happened. She stopped, turned, and I saw it all. The math. The sickening click of realization behind her eyes. Like a woman waking up to the sound of glass breaking downstairs and realizing the alarm was never set. She whispered it like she already knew. Matt. I stepped into the hallway behind her. Nothing dramatic. No raised voice. No heavy breathing. Just presence. Just truth. Go ahead, I said. She didn't move. The knock came again, softer this time. Almost uncertain. Maybe he sensed something. Or maybe the silence made him nervous. Julie stood there in her robe, bare feet pressed to the hardwood, staring at the door like it had grown teeth. I stood behind her with my arms crossed. I didn't say another word. She didn't reach for the knob. She didn't have to. We both knew what was behind it. I waited, and she wilted. Her shoulders sagged. Her hands dropped to her sides. I don't think I'd ever seen her look smaller. I turned and walked back into the kitchen. She didn't follow. I poured myself a fresh cup of coffee, sat down at the table again, and took a sip. The mug was warm. The bitterness cut through the smoke. Outside, the man knocked one last time, then paused. I imagined him looking over his shoulder, checking the house number, checking his phone, checking his heart rate. Then footsteps, retreating, car door opening, closing, engine starting, fading down the street. Julie still hadn't moved. Eventually she came back into the kitchen. She didn't speak. She stood in the doorway with the wet towel clenched in her hands, her robe pulled tight around her. Her hair was already starting to dry, curling slightly at the ends. Her face was pale. I looked up at her once, then back down at the coffee. You should flip the bacon, I said. It was blackened now, charred, like something abandoned too long, just like everything else. That night, we sat across from each other at the kitchen table like strangers waiting out a storm. The clock ticked. The windows were dark. Julie kept fiddling with her sleeve, twisting it into knots she couldn't untie. She hadn't spoken since the knock. Neither had I, but the truth was already in the room. The phone sat between us, silent, face down. She reached for it once, thought better of it, pulled her hand back like she was afraid of touching a live wire. I knew the feeling. I'd handled that phone like a bomb earlier, and I guess in a way it was one I'd disarmed by letting it go off in her hands. Julie finally spoke. Her voice was raw. It didn't mean anything. I said nothing. She blinked quickly, tears threatening. It was just a few months. Started after a long shift. I was exhausted, and he listened. He noticed things. I didn't think it would. She trailed off. I could hear the kids upstairs. Her boys, their feet thudding against the floor as they played something loud, something fast-paced. I never learned their games. They never showed me. Julie looked at me across the table, desperate now. It was a mistake. I shook my head slowly. A message is a mistake. A months-long conversation is a decision. She closed her eyes, flinched. I could tell she expected shouting, rage, slurs, anything but what she got, quiet, even contempt. I've seen this kind of thing before. A wire phrase over time. A marriage doesn't explode, it burns out in silence. Why didn't you say something? She whispered. I sipped my coffee. Because I wanted to see what you'd say first. Her mouth opened, maybe to protest, maybe to lie, but she thought better of it. She just nodded, slowly, like she was accepting a verdict before it was even handed down. That night, I didn't sleep in our bed. Couldn't. I took the couch. She stayed in the hallway for a while, watching me settle in with the same face she wore at funerals. She didn't cry. Not until she turned and walked into the guest room, her son's room, technically. Ryan's. The younger one. The same son who never once called me Dad. I lay there for hours. The ceiling fan spun slow above me, creaking every time it turned. I watched it like a clock. When my eyes finally shut, it wasn't sleep, it was a kind of blinking surrender. At 4 a.m., I got up. I turned on my laptop, opened a fresh document, and started typing. Names, dates, screenshots, everything. I built a quiet little archive of betrayal. By sunrise, I had what I needed. Not for court, not for revenge. Just for clarity. I wanted the weight of facts. Because when everything else collapses, all you can do is build something solid out of what's left. The next morning, I made breakfast. Eggs, toast, black coffee. I didn't touch the bacon. Julie came down the stairs looking like she hadn't slept. Hair tied back, robe swapped for jeans and a hospital sweatshirt. Her face was puffy. Her eyes avoided mine. The boys sat down next to her, Ryan and Caleb, 17 and 15, both from her first marriage. Both too big for the space they took up. I'd raised them for 8 years, paid for their school supplies, picked them up from football, sat through their concerts. I taught Ryan how to drive, helped Caleb with algebra even when he rolled his eyes. I was there when their dad wasn't. And still, I was always just Matt. Never dad. Never stepdad even. Just Matt. Caleb stabbed at his eggs. Ryan muttered without looking at me, "You're not family. Stay out of our lives." And Julie? She just shrugged. Shrugged. Didn't correct him. Didn't scold. Just sat there and sipped her coffee while the boy I kept fed and clothed told me I didn't belong. That was the moment. Not the messages. Not the knock. Not even her tears. That moment with her silence. That's when I knew what I was to them. Convenient. Temporary. Forgettable. I didn't reply. I finished my meal, wiped my hands, and went to the garage. By the end of the day, I'd removed myself from every school record I'd once been added to. I'd set up permissions to restrict my name from medical contacts, sports waivers, tutoring bills. I called the school office and asked them to direct all calls to Julie. Permanently. Then I got to work on the house. I cut power to the smart thermostat, shut off the Wi-Fi, disabled the security system I had installed, reset the passwords on every device that carried my signature, streaming accounts, grocery subscriptions, phone plans. One by one, I peeled myself out of the life I had helped build like old wallpaper. Julie noticed by evening. "Matt, the thermostat's off," she said, tapping at the screen like it might flicker back to life. I didn't answer. "The Wi-Fi's down too. Did we forget the bill?" I shrugged. Ryan came downstairs a minute later, phone in hand. "Netflix isn't working." "Try reading," I said. He stared at me. I stared back. He didn't say another word. The next day, the school called 3 times. I ignored each one. I knew what it was. Missed assignment, forgotten appointment, some volunteer shift Julie forgot to sign up for. I let it all burn. By the weekend, the house had slipped into chaos. The thermostat was stuck at 63. The boys wore hoodies at the dinner table. Julie wrapped herself in blankets while they argued about bandwidth and schedules and why no one had picked up Caleb from practice. I sat on the porch every night, sipping coffee as the cold crept in. And I watched Julie unravel. Watched the control she thought she had dissolve under the weight of her own negligence. One night, I heard her on the phone with her sister. "No, I don't know what's going on. He won't talk to me. He's just shut down." She was crying by the end of the call. And I felt nothing. Or maybe not nothing. Maybe I felt what a man feels after a long, grueling shift. Not anger. Not even triumph. Just the hollow ache of muscles that had carried too much for too long. Let them stumble. Let the bills pile up. Let the heat stay off. Let the phone calls go unanswered. Let them finally feel the absence of the man they swore was never really there. Because I had been there. Every day. Every night. Quietly holding together a house full of people who never once asked how I was doing. Who never once thanked me for keeping them warm. So now they could manage without me. Let them sweat. Let them shiver. Let them finally notice the man in the walls, now gone. Julie's father turned 70 in February. We'd booked a hall in St. Paul, white tablecloths, cheap chafing dishes, folding chairs that pinched at the thighs. It was the kind of forced celebration that makes everyone dress nice and pretend they haven't spent the last 6 months resenting each other. Her family came in waves. Sisters with casserole dishes. Brothers in sport coats they hadn't worn since a wedding. Aunts clutching purses like shields. Everyone smiling too wide. Everyone performing. Julie wore navy. Hair curled, earrings subtle. She looked every bit the devoted wife, calm, composed, hand brushing lightly against my back like a reflex. Like we were still us. But we weren't. By then, the house had changed. The boys had stopped speaking to me entirely. They lived in the corners of the home now, moving around me like I was furniture. Julie pretended not to notice. When the internet came back, her account this time, she didn't ask me to reconnect the router. When the school called about a missed meeting, she handled it. When Ryan's counselor emailed about FAFSA deadlines, she sat alone at the kitchen table for 2 hours, Googling terms she should have known 5 years ago. They'd begun to realize what I'd taken with me. Not the money, not the labor, the structure. But they never said thank you. They never admitted the walls were buckling. At the party, people kept approaching me with plastic smiles. "Matt, good to see you. You've still got that sharp look. Retirement coming soon?" "Julie tells me you're doing well. That's great." I nodded. I laughed. I lied. Julie's father was seated near the front, cheeks red from too much wine. He waved me over at one point, grinning, eyes half-lidded with warmth. "Thanks for coming, son. Wouldn't miss it," I said. Another lie, because I wasn't there for him. I wasn't there for Julie. I was there for the truth. I waited until the cake had been cut, until the speeches had started, until everyone had sunk into the soft lull that comes after too much food and not enough honesty. Then I stood. People quieted. I walked up to the microphone, the one they'd been using for toast after toast, voice after voice claiming love, history, gratitude. I didn't clear my throat. I didn't smile. I didn't announce anything. I opened a folder. Plain one. Black. Unmarked. And I read, "I can't stop thinking about Friday. I miss your smile." A beat. Then I kept going. Each line. Each message. Each timestamp. I didn't embellish. I didn't raise my voice. I just let the facts speak. Laughter died. Glasses were set down, untouched. Julie's face drained of color. She sat stiffly at the family table, hands in her lap, eyes fixed on me like I was holding a detonator. Gary, the man from the hospital, was there too. Of course he was. Third row, near the buffet. When I said his name, I watched his whole body collapse an inch. He looked down, looked for exits. No one moved. I read for 5 minutes, maybe less, but it felt like hours. When I finished, I closed the folder. That was it. No speech, no accusations, just evidence. Truth like a body dragged into daylight. I stepped down, walked past Julie without looking at her, walked past her father, who now sat frozen, blinking like he'd just seen lightning hit the floor, walked out into the cold. The night air bit at my face. My breath came out in clouds. Somewhere behind me, someone called my name. I didn't turn around. I got into the truck and drove. Not home. I didn't have one anymore. I drove to the west side, to my son Alex's place. A small apartment above a laundromat, tight ceilings and old carpet. I'd helped him move in 3 years ago. Fixed the sink when it leaked. Rewired the kitchen light when it kept flickering. He gave me a key after the second fix. I let myself in. Alex looked up from the couch, startled at first. Then he saw my face. "You finally done?" he asked. I nodded. He stood, grabbed a second beer from the fridge, and handed it to me without a word. We sat in silence. TV off. Phones face down. That night, I didn't sleep on a couch. I slept in the guest room, under a blanket that smelled faintly of detergent and thyme. I closed my eyes knowing no one in that room would lie to me. When I woke up, I had 7 missed calls. 4 from Julie. 3 from unknown numbers I recognized anyway, her sisters. I didn't listen to the voicemails. Later that day, my attorney called. "It begins," he said. He meant the separation, the paperwork, the carving up of a life. I didn't flinch. Julie texted that evening. "Please come home. Please talk to me." I didn't reply. She sent another. "You embarrassed me. You humiliated me." Still nothing. The third came hours later. "I miss you. Please." That one stayed unread. For the first time in years, I wasn't exhausted. I wasn't holding up a house that leaned too hard in all the wrong places. I was empty and free. That's the part no one tells you. That freedom doesn't feel like fireworks. Feels like silence. like a weight rolling off your back so slowly you almost don't notice until you're standing up straighter. At Alex's, I fixed things. The way I always do. Leaky faucet. Done. Drafty window. Sealed. I replaced the batteries in the smoke detector without being asked. Cooked breakfast twice a week. Sat on the balcony in the evenings with coffee, watching the sky change. No one asked me what I was thinking. No one made me earn my space. It was strange. How quickly life simplified when I stopped begging to be seen. Julie kept trying. Emails. Calls. A letter in the mail, her handwriting still familiar. I didn't open it. What could it say? That she regretted it? That it wasn't worth it? That the man who wrote, "I miss your smile," couldn't fix the furnace or sit through her mother's stories, or remember the kids' birthdays without being reminded? That she'd chosen attention over loyalty and lost both? I already knew. The truth had been read aloud. The door had been closed. The man they forgot to thank was gone. And no one could say they didn't see it coming. The diner was almost empty. One of those chain places with cracked booths and coffee that tastes like melted paper. I picked the table by the window. It was morning, cold and gray. The kind of sky that doesn't decide whether it's going to rain or just hang heavy on your shoulders all day. Julie arrived late. 10 minutes, maybe 12. I watched her car pull in. Watched her sit in the front seat. Engine still running. Her hands gripping the wheel longer than necessary. When she stepped out, she looked thinner. Smaller. Like something had been drained from her. Or maybe it was never there to begin with. She wore the same coat I'd bought her 2 Christmases ago. Still had the broken zipper I'd meant to fix. I didn't stand when she walked in. Didn't smile. Just nodded once. She sat down slowly. Didn't speak right away. Just stared at the mug of coffee already waiting for her. Steam rising. Her eyes glassed over. "I miss you," she said, almost in a whisper. I let the silence sit between us. Let it stretch long enough that the waitress gave up and left us alone. Then I answered. Calm. Flat. "You miss who we were, not who we are now." Julie flinched. She looked out the window like the answer might be waiting in the fog. She reached across the table. Her hand hovered, fingers trembling. I didn't take it. "Please," she said. "Just come home. We'll go to counseling. I'll do whatever you want. I can't do this alone." I looked at her then, really looked. The smudged makeup, the bitten nails, the posture of a woman used to getting second chances. I sipped my coffee. "That's not home anymore." She blinked hard. Tears, maybe, but I'd seen them before. "You don't understand," she whispered. "The boys, they're falling apart. Ryan's skipping school. Caleb barely eats. The house is freezing half the time. Everything's broken." I let her talk. Let her list the things I'd once held together, as if naming them might summon me back into the role. As if chaos itself was an apology. "They miss you, Matt," she said. "They do. They just didn't know how to show it." I nodded. "I know. They showed me how much I mattered. Every single day." She had no reply to that. Just silence again. The waitress finally came. We both declined food. More coffee, though. Julie stirred sugar into hers with shaking hands. "I shouldn't have let them speak to you like that," she said. "That's true. I shouldn't have. You shouldn't have cheated. You shouldn't have shrugged when your son told me I wasn't family. You shouldn't have let me carry a house you stopped building." Her mouth opened, closed. I leaned forward. "You didn't just betray me, Julie. You trained them to." She wiped her face with a napkin. Came away stained. "I thought you'd forgive me," she said. "You've always forgiven everything." I nodded. "I used to. That was my mistake." She swallowed. Her voice cracked. "So that's it." I leaned back, looked out the window. People walked past in coats and hats. Lives moving on. "That's it." She didn't argue after that. Maybe because she knew. Maybe because there was nothing left to say. We sat there a few more minutes. She tried to hold onto the moment, the way a child clutches a balloon already slipping from their fingers. But the knot was gone. The air was gone. When she stood, she lingered. "Do you want to see them? Ryan and Caleb?" I looked at her. "Why? So they can practice another goodbye?" She looked away. I didn't. She walked out. Didn't look back. I finished my coffee. Left a 5 on the table. Walked into a morning that no longer asked anything of me. Back at Alex's, things were simpler. Honest. I fixed a leak in the bathroom. Changed the spark plugs in his car. We watched old westerns, shared grocery runs, kept to ourselves. Quiet mornings. Long walks around the lake. Nights where no one needed to pretend we were fine. One night, I got a message from Ryan. Just a few words. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean it." I didn't reply, because forgiveness isn't currency. It isn't something you trade for comfort. Another time, Caleb emailed a photo of his report card. Honor roll. His note was one line. "Thanks for what you used to do." That one I saved. Not because I needed it, but because it was the first thing either of them had sent me that didn't ask for anything. Julie called once in April, just to say she was selling the house. Said it was too big, too quiet. Asked if I wanted anything from the garage. I told her to leave the toolbox for the next man. Let him try to fix what couldn't be built right the first time. By summer, she'd moved in with her sister. The boys drifted between houses, schools, temp jobs. I saw none of it. Heard only what Alex mentioned in passing. The past had become a place I refused to visit. And what did I gain? Peace. Not joy. Not pride. But silence. Stillness. The kind you only get after walking out of a house burning from the inside and never going back. I didn't tell my story for revenge. I told it so I wouldn't rewrite it in my head later, soften the edges, let memory lie to me. Because here's the truth. A man can carry a family like a cross. He can give them his time, his sweat, his name. He can be the ghost in the walls, the heat in the vents, the money in the account, the hands that fix what others break. But if they don't see him, if they don't respect him, then he is not a father. He is not a husband. He is ballast, dead weight. And the only way to stop sinking is to let go of what's pulling you under. So now I ask you, all of you who have heard this, was I wrong? Was I cruel? Or did I finally become the man they said I never were? A man who knows when to walk away? Would you have endured more? Or would you, like me, have finally looked at the life you built and left it standing behind you? You tell me.